What is this? Podcast 975?
975. They continue to add.
I am
keep adding up.
Mind boggled by the fact that we're here again. Again, every 25 podcasts we do a live that's going to continue. I don't know, until one of us stops wanting to do this anymore, which shouldn't come anytime soon.
No,
I've got podcast news later, but right now we're going to dive in. Reminder, every 25 we are on live, and we're thrilled to have you join us. If you've just discovered the podcast that even does lives, well, good to have you. Otherwise, we will continue to do our audio podcast twice a week, but big changes coming this year. We'll talk about that after the 1,000. However, it's an all questions podcast. It's the gag that we do when we do these live ones. So we're going to start and dive right in. This is not supposed to be a non-car question podcast. We're going to try to
car
focus on
questions.
cars.
Yep.
But we're going to dive in. And here we go. Next
Riley.
live one, you're right, is 1,000.
And Riley O'Brien is asking any plans for episode 1000. That will be held at the May 31st, June 1st HPDE at COTA. So we've been talking about this for a little while, and that will be coinciding with our 1000th podcast. It's a very big event. You can see the event details at hookedondriving.com, and that coincides with the recording of the 1000 at the same event.
1,000 podcasts. Also, just to clarify further about that event, there are stages of that event. Obviously, the main part is the track day, those 2 days, the live podcast, like Paul said, Saturday night. All of that is happening, but we are road tripping and road trip filming, making a road trip film from Utah to Austin. Then, of course, we'll have the 2-day tracking event. Then we're going to continue from Austin all the way to Charlotte, going up into Arkansas and coming across the Ozarks, and yes, Tail of the Dragon and all the stuff we haven't done in the Southeast. That is going to be a continued road trip with more road trip filming. Yes, you can join us. There's been a lot of questions. Those that are on our Discord, our patrons right now already know this, but the short version is we're going to make a sign-up sheet available where if you want to come with us, there's your information. And also, if you would like to have your car featured, everybody that asks won't get their car featured.
And
that's a problem I'm loving having,
yeah.
But we're trying to do 2 different cars every day of the road trip film, making multiple road trip films out of it. We're very excited about that. We're kind of collecting cars right now. We're going to put that out beyond the patrons here shortly, and hopefully people are going to want to travel with us. I don't know what this means. I don't know if this means this is you and me and the 2 cars being featured and a support vehicle and like 1 straggler, or if it means we're going to create traffic everywhere we go and it's like 40 of us. I don't know what we're going to do.
Of cars. I'm hoping it's the latter.
Yeah, I do too. Now, it will be a thing where we are obviously going to cover ourselves. And if you guys want to come, then you'll have to cover your own hotels and stuff. But this is how we're going to do a crazy adventure headed toward the 1,000th. And then even after the 1,000th, you and I are going to be gone filming and driving for 2 weeks straight. And that is simultaneously exhausting to think about and really exhilarating. And I'm very excited. My son has already decided, I just thought you should know, he's coming for the back half. He said to us with a straight face, we will have turned our computers in on Friday. There's really no work for me to do the next couple days. So he's putting his stake in the ground that he's coming. It's going to be crazy. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for all the questions over the years. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your questions on this recording too. You can go ahead and ask them there. We posted up on social media and our Discord. If you want to join the Discord, please let us know, because the conversations are always ongoing there. And Jordan, just saw Jordan Schieffer. He is with Out of Spec, and he asks if there's anything Porsche themed for 981. Jordan, I could have done episode 914, 986, 987,
Paul to
911, 959. All the Cayennes.
Stop.
Forgot all the Cayennes.
Those were in the 50s. We've passed already.
And then we go to Panameras and all the anyway, we could have. But no 981 theme necessarily. Kind of had to let that die early on in the 900s, but that's okay. David M., hello from Charlotte. Really appreciate you jumping on. And Ray Lee is asking, which LS7 engine cars would we rather have, the C6 Z06 or Gen 5 Camaro Z28? Why? Are you shopping?
Apparently,
Are you wondering? I would rather have the Vet. The C6 Z06 is really great to drive. I prefer that car. That 5th gen Camaro Z28 is very frantic and cool. I just never liked the mail slot windows. I never really liked the seating position. Corvette really does it for me. So
I agree with you on that. I do think that Gen 5 Camaro, that was one of those cars when it first came out, they were doing huge markups, and 6 months later you could get them for underneath sticker. But we actually drove one of the first ones in LA way back when it got dropped, and it was a world beater. It was a car that was much better than it should have been. But I'm with you. I prefer to be in the C6.
See, Hypnotoad says greetings from Boston, and Chuma the Puma. Hey, love Love it. Really glad you can join us. And Nathaniel G from New York, people from all over. This is really great. Daniel N is asking me, car podcast adjacent, what should he drink with this live airing? Angels Envy Finished Rye Rum Cask, Bibb and Tucker Double Char Bourbon, or New Riff Single Barrel. I'd say something that keeps you interested and engaged, a little less relaxation, a little bit more, something that each drink is going to wake you up and keep you going. So
1993 Warbirds, would we laugh if someone showed up at the COTA event or pilgrimage in a mid-2000s Toyota Camry? Well, first off, pilgrimage, are you in Europe? Are you driving your Camry over there? I don't think you're showing up in your Camry at pilgrimage, but for one of our adventures or COTA, look, man, bring the car you've got. If that's the car you've got, one of the things I love the most about Hooked on Driving, and I don't say this just because it's a pitch, is the fact that run what you brung. I have seen all kinds of cars.
We'd say welcome.
Exactly. I've seen all kinds of cars that some that go by and I'm like, whoa, I can't believe somebody's driving that. That's amazing. Another one, I'm like, you literally were commuting that yesterday and I'm thrilled you're here. It doesn't matter. The thing that I find so amazing about anything you drive now on modern tires, and we've talked about this before, the average stuff is more capable than people realize, let alone the performance stuff. So if you've never really driven your Camry hard, I think it would shock you, especially with good tires. So I say bring it.
Ooh, Aaron Butler just wrote in. He said his father-in-law from the episodes of He Hates His Wife's Car and the car conclusion that's associated with it just bought a GR86 Hakone edition. He said, you did this. I can hear the disdain, the scorn in your voice.
No, he's saying thank us. He's thanking us because let's think of the other stuff that he could have wound up in. Look, the Hakone edition is gorgeous. I'm not really a green car guy,
Aaron,
but it looks amazing.
If it means he gets to drive it, has access to it, which probably does. Perfect. So he's just going, thank you. Okay, maybe it's that. Aaron, congratulations, and congratulations to your father-in-law. And go driving, plan a drive. Actually, come on our events this year. Come with us to Pilgrimage. We're so excited for Pilgrimage. It's so fun to go back every year and then share the trip with all of you. Share what we've learned and what we know. We've really dialed it. It's really good. Come with us. Just, creak the checkbook open.
It's getting harder and harder, but it is a thing that's worth it for sure. Yeah. The Gothard family's asking about, we said an EV commuter. EV makes perfect sense as a bumper-to-bumper commuter. If we needed to buy that, which would we choose and why? Okay, we have a test drive of the brand new Model 3, thanks to Jordan, coming soon. It's about a week away. And
that's his new Model 3, yeah.
That is his new Model 3. I mean, look, if we're talking about a commuter drone car, that has to be a consideration. I don't know that it's the one I would get, but it has to be a consideration. Because I'm a geek, I think the Ioniq 5N would be on my radar, even though it's really not. I mean, its purpose is to be driven for fun. But since it can chill out and be an EV, I think that's worthwhile. I'm trying to think of the other ones we like.
The quiet mode.
The GV60 that is the Kia, right?
Genesis GV60?
Sorry, the Genesis GV60. That one, actually, I was quite impressed by.
Yeah, that's good.
That felt like a luxury car, and yet does all of the EV things. That's one of my favorites. It depends on how downgrade you want to go, because there's a part of me that would do an old BMW i3, except one of the benefits of the commuter is, does it have super smart cruise control? And I don't know how smart that cruise control is, but I think the i3 is quirky and weird and may as well have one, especially as a commute car. Why not? Because they're cheap now.
Jeremy Cronin's asking how we feel about a motorbike tagging along for Tail of the Dragon road trip leg. He'll be there on 2 wheels. Does that qualify for one run what you brung? Yes, not at the ring due to their new rule changes, but yeah, absolutely bring it. We'd love to see you there, and we'd love to have a variety of vehicles, including your bike. So please bring it. Would be great to see you. I've got a friend named James Cronin, who is the visualization manager at Scout. So I thought that was James, but it's Jeremy on here. So that's really cool. Jeremy, thank you. Really appreciate you writing.
Let's see.
Chuma's asking our thoughts on BMW discontinuing the 8 Series this year, 4 Series on the Sunset Tour looking to end in 2027. Electric Focus seems to be the reason. Actually, we featured Jordan Schieffer on last episode. Hopefully you heard him. He gave some great insights about EVs, and he and I were talking after the episode about BMW, your comment about BMWs and how they all drive the same.
Yes.
Because their chassis, their platforms are designed for both kinds of powertrains. Of course, it makes sense. I will not miss the 8 Series. I've always felt that it's, wow, this is really great for someone, not me.
Yeah,
it's great
fair.
for
That's
somebody.
fair.
And so I feel like I don't know what their sales numbers were, but there's so much competition in that category. It had to be a real standout, and it was good. I'm not really compelled by it. And then the 4 Series, I want it to be less beaver teeth-ish.
You just want the styling to be better. It's actually, look, that's actually a car that has a ton of power, even in the base model, and has a lot of space. I'm actually a fan of the 4 Series, except for that nose.
That new generation that we're seeing, all the concepts, everything that we're seeing from BMW, I actually really like. It feels fresh.
The new class stuff?
The new class. It feels original to me. It feels like BMW has finally stopped looking around. What is everybody else doing? And really gone back to what they know. And it feels like a fresh direction for me. So I understand electrification. Yeah, I'm hoping they consider hybridization as a mix too, because it's never going in one direction or the other. They need to have a nice product mix. But for BMW especially, since their platforms, generally speaking, are designed for both, they can get away with it much more easily than, say, a company like Volkswagen.
Oh, by the way, this Sunday is our Volkswagen Taos test drive. It's coming this Sunday. I'm just telling you, it's going to be right here on the Test Drive channel. We drive the new Taos. There's a lot of that. That general just kind of defeatist sigh exists from my dear friend Paul during a lot of the thing. I am laughing here because the Roper crew writes in that he was literally taking the third cat off his Amira when listening to the podcast where I was ranting about this and saying, this is stupid. Please don't take the third cat off your Amira. And I stand by it. Okay, because I can hear that car plenty. Now, I know I am the weird guy that I don't like loud exhaust, and maybe people do, and I'm supposedly not a car enthusiast because I don't like loud exhaust. But I have a loud car. It's called the Elise, and I'm thrilled that the Amira isn't as loud.
It's loud with the stock. You put the stock exhaust back on.
I put the stock exhaust. Yeah, of course it is. Well, yes, it was even louder before.
But anyway, that whole aluminum chassis it's like a tuning fork.
Yes, it is. So I have a loud car, and that's still the stock exhaust. But the thing I like about the Amira is I can drive it all the time, wherever. I can make it howl or I can make it chill out. So, if you want to take the third cat off, I get it, but I also don't get it. But I do think it's funny that aligned. That's pretty great.
All right, we've got Track Daily Crushes from both the Schieffer guys. Austin Schieffer is Jordan's brother, Track Daily Crush, but for British car brands, Jaguar, Bentley, Aston Martin. The direction Jaguar is going is sort of like, please turn back.
What are you doing? Go away.
You've reached the end. Stop.
That's funny.
Don't come any further. Like, turn back. So Jaguar, I'm crushing, because if that's the direction they're going, then I'm not a huge fan. Bentley would probably be the daily, because, dailing a Bentley, of course, got to. But Aston on track. By the way, I'm seeing reports that Aston Martin is bleeding cash, but they expect next year to be a whole lot better. And then Maserati just got, they got denied some investment cash is what I'm seeing. And it's kind of disappointing. And, it seems like everybody is asking, everybody has an opinion. What car brand, what should they do next? What kind of product portfolio? And I'm really mixed on Maserati, because I want them to stay around, but it's either throw more money. It's almost good money after bad, almost. But they have good stuff right now. They've got a great V6 with a lot of power, and it seems like it's a great engine. Sure. The GT is a beautiful car. It's a cool car. It's just too expensive. If that were far less money, I think Maserati would be in the minds to sell it. But the problem is, by doing that, it's not a premium brand anymore. And the MC20, as cool as it is being held back. Some of the choices held it back from being truly world-class, because at that price point, it just needs to over-deliver. It needs to be what Nissan GTRs did to the entire world in 2009, 2008, whenever the R35 came back. So I feel like the MC20 needed to do more for its dollars to be, wow, this is really kind of crazy. I might consider going from my brand, to Maserati, but it seems like they won't have the development dollars, but right now they're spread too thin. So Maserati, make one car. One.
You want them to be Bugatti.
Correct.
Yeah. This is the Maserati Halo car, ba-boom, and that's all we're making right now.
Correct.
I can see it. I can see it.
One.
Yeah.
And it's the special Maserati at whatever price point they decide. It doesn't have to be at the Bugatti price point.
I understand what you're saying, but it's got to be exclusive enough price point. It's got to be something that still feels like a throwdown. Yeah.
But Maserati has always been held back by its brand managers from encroaching on Ferrari. We all know that it's not trying to encroach. It needs to be its own thing. And so let it be different by making one.
I like that.
And
that's cool.
That
that's really
might
good.
make the investment worth it.
Colin Cutler says, you're asking for a friend, which means you aren't asking for a friend. Colin, what did you buy? He is asking us, have we ever accidentally purchased a car? And the answer is no. And it's because I don't bid on online auctions. Everyone I know that bids on an online car auction one day goes, uh-oh, like,
oops,
because you do that. We all do this. We did the thing where we're like, well, you know what? I'll throw my hat in the ring. Anytime you're in an auction, it doesn't matter what it's for. Okay. Like go to the bake sale of your kid's school and they do an auction for cake. You're like, that cake doesn't have any bidding. I'll just bid on it. Looks terrible, but whatever. And then you end up with that cake. It happens. Seriously, it happens. So my point is, this is the problem with online auction sites for cars. And I feel like I've known so many people that follow the show that have written in and said, oops. And many of you have written and been like, what do we do? Because I just accidentally won an auction and I haven't told my spouse. You do that, I'll make a bid. And then you come back later and you go,
how do I tell?
Yes, exactly. So I haven't because I stay off of those sites, but I have done things like buy a $5,000 Phaeton from Florida and fly to Arizona without a pre-purchase inspection with my dear friend Paul and drive home in a BMW Z4 we just bought. So, we've had our craziness, just not on those sites.
Daniel N says, should Maserati follow the Chrysler model of just having one vehicle? No. No.
Yeah.
You've misinterpreted. Right. No. The Chrysler single vehicle exists because I think the brand was poorly managed and everything else timed out, and they decided to stop production and went, you know what? I just realized we only build one Chrysler vehicle. I think it was sort of like a revelation. It wasn't planned, and they just kind of got to the end and went, ooh.
Now that we
didn't
stopped
really
everything
plan.
Else. Yeah. Now we're just selling a van. That's it. We're just a van.
This would be deliberate. It would be planned. They would know that, put all the mojo into development of that one vehicle, not just stop the rest and think, I guess this is what we're left with. Rental car agencies. How'd you like to place another big fleet order?
Yeah. Don't you want a lot of Pacificas? Yeah. Can we sell you all the base models? Ahmed's writing in and saying he'd love for us to review his 2012 SLS AMG. How do we make it happen? Ahmed, where are you? Where are you located? Because are you anywhere on our route? It's literally like a V of the country. Anywhere on our route between Utah and Austin, and then Austin and Charlotte. If you're anywhere on there, that is the way to make it happen, because we're going to review a lot of cars this year. I'm excited to get a lot of various things. So send us an email, everydaydrivertv@gmail.com. Let's see if we can connect the dots on that, because that is a cool one to at least discuss. I really like that idea. Hyundai Palisade opinions, and do we think the new Hyundais are reliable? Carson, there are small Hyundai engines, I forget which turbo engine, that are money pits, but a lot of the rest of them are good. I like the V6 they make. That typically has been a pretty good engine. I have heard from plenty of people that Hyundais and Kias aren't as reliable as people want them to be, in spite of the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. I've definitely heard that, but most of the people I know with Hyundais have had pretty good experiences. The Hyundai Palisade is a great vehicle. It's that or the Kia Telluride. Those are sister vehicles. They're excellent. They've been the winners in that class for a while because they are genuinely very good.
Sorry, I was reading questions. Did we talk about Nusser Ahmed's C8 Corvette and LC500 yet? I don't think we did.
No.
Nusser is fortunate to have driven a C8 Corvette and LC500, yet found both disappointing compared to a 981 Cayman GTS. Yes.
You just want to stop the podcast there, don't you?
Yeah, you're good. We're good. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm not sure it's a question. Corvette lacked the polish. LC was too sanitized. Is he missing something? I don't think you are, but it depends on what you're looking for. And clearly, neither of those cars are what you're looking for. I think you're looking for something a lot smaller, a lot lighter, and it doesn't matter where the engine is. And so for that reason, I think the Cayman spoke to you, because the C8 is good and we like it, but we like it because it's such a great all-arounder.
It's everything.
Everything on your list. Like, does that? Yep.
Yep.
All the way down your list. It's not the standout. It's not the, wow, it's amazing over here. Same with the LC. You've got to be shopping in the right category, the right mindset of what you're looking at. So if you're bringing like, I want the lightest, most nimble car, of course, neither of those are going to do it for you. I mean, even the GTS, isn't really that. There's even more nimble, finer handling cars than that.
Sarah, actually, I'm going to suggest to you, look, I like the Cayman. Paul likes the Cayman. I've driven the LC500 in the right situation, and that car is wonderful. As a road trip car, a GT car, it's brilliant. The C8 is a do-everything car. I get it. But if you're looking for more involvement, I like that 981. But I really want to challenge you. I want you to drive an MX-5. I want you to drive a GR86 or a BRZ, and drive the Z4 BMW while you're at it. And if you really want to go out on a limb, try the Lotus products. Find an Elise to drive, find an Evora to drive. Because if you're looking for involvement, you need to get more toward this car isn't made to GT. It's just made to drive for fun, and you're going to get that visceral feeling back.
Let's see, 1993 Warbirds asking me, as a designer, does it bother me as much as it does Warbirds that so many cars have such abrupt trunk lines? It's like the C-pillar ends and then just nothing. I think you're talking about the transition of the C-pillar into the upper surface, the upward facing surface, and where it comes into the body side. That's one of the most difficult areas on a car to resolve. You've got 5 or 6 surfaces all converging at a single point. Same thing where the A-pillar drops to the front fender there. There's many surfaces, including the shoulder theme that you've established, ending right at that point, and it's right where your eye goes. So right where the C-pillar intersects with the trunk, there's usually some sort of trunk opening. And you're right. There's cars that execute this a lot better than others, but sometimes it's not that designers say, screw it, we're done. There's still a lot of
never
effort,
mind.
But there is a point where the development costs will exceed what the program development is or should be, and they've got to move on. Now, that's why we see development throughout the car's life cycle. We see new generations of things. We see slight revisions, because as soon as a car comes out, that doesn't mean they've stopped working on it. That just means they've gotten it to market. That's
true.
it.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
So yeah, you see some cars that, you think, oh, that was a pretty abrupt ending, but sometimes, yeah, designers have to say, well, that's the best that we've got available right now. Project brief, we like that. Sometimes it's a personal opinion and people just like it anyway. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that.
Craig is asking a question I'm going to try to tackle. He said, why do Aston, Jaguar, and Maserati lose their value so quickly but still cost so much? Two things going on there at once from my perspective. One, they are supposed to be premium luxury brands. In the same way, it was difficult for Volkswagen to sell a $100,000 Phaeton in the showroom because Volkswagen is an affordable brand. Imagine Aston Martin sells a $30,000 car.
Signet.
But you had to buy a real Aston to get one.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, but the point is, nobody's coming in the showroom for that. So they have to sell them at a certain price point to stay within kind of the strata of their brand. There's that. But then there's other issues. Those cars haven't had a good reputation and still don't maintain a good reputation for being Toyota-style reliable or inexpensive to fix. So that's a strike against them. But the biggest strike is those are brands that don't have second buyers. This is the reason that Porsches maintain their value so well. But look at the Porsches we're talking about. The Taycan plummets, the Cayenne plummets. Those don't have second buyers. The sports cars, the Cayman, and especially the 911, you buy them and they just hang on to value because there's all these people waiting in the wings to buy that car. And that's what keeps the value up. Look at this with Toyota pickups, for example. Everyone on the planet wants to buy a second-hand Tacoma or Tundra. And so the prices stay high. Who's shopping for a used Nissan full-size pickup? Nobody.
Who's shopping for a Nissan?
Well, there is that issue as well. But these are luxury brands without a second buyer, and the second buyer problem is the reason that the Taycans are on the floor right now, because that dictates the entire thing.
All right, we've got more design. Chuma the Puma is asking about design, and Chuma is trying to learn about cars, chairs, Bauhaus, mid-century modern, the entire aesthetic. Do I have any recommendations on learning foundational knowledge in this space? You should definitely investigate Charles and Ray Eames, a couple that really defined the mid-century look. Actually, the Eames house in Los Angeles, I believe, was untouched by the Palisades fires, but that was a house entirely designed by them, everything in it. Fantastic place to visit, and just really shows off their works. But there's a lot of furniture and books that the Eames did and produced, but you can also look at George Nelson, famous designer. He wrote a book called How to See in 1977. Looked it up here. It is a book to recognize, evaluate, and understand objects and landscape in the man-made world around us. And he designed that book specifically for what you're asking, and it's timeless because it applies, the principles apply, just like you can apply design knowledge to any object, your eyeglasses, shirts, clothing, cars. The foundation is the same. Then you're looking at the market and how is the product made, and what is the market it competes in. All of those things still apply before you even put pen to paper or AI to project.
AI to prompt. There we go.
AI to input
prompt
or something.
Yay,
I don't
me.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great book. And any mid-century modern, there's a lot of great bookstores. I'll send you a list of great bookstores that produce mid-century modern themes. You can go look at that. Yeah, there's just so much to learn. It just really makes you appreciate every object and the effort that goes into it.
Nathan Crabtree is saying, with most cars these days lacking 3 pedals, because most of them, why would they need it? Why isn't left foot braking taught as the standard? It's a great question. I've actually had this conversation with my wife and with my son, who's actually driving now. He has a permit. It's terrifying. No, it's actually not terrifying. He's doing really well. It's terrifying for people that have not ridden in the car with him. That's what's happened. They're like, wait, he's driving now? We have reached that place. So anyway, the thing is, the instruction hasn't caught up to the reality in the same way that the legislation hasn't caught up to some of the stuff that's going on with electric cars. Like we were in this Model 3. Sorry, I keep thinking about it. And we were using the full self-driving, and I was saying to you guys, I don't feel like the legislation is caught up to the technology with stuff going on in that car. The reality is everyone is taught to leave that left foot available for clutch pedals they may never use. But now we're talking about, seriously, now we're talking about completely changing the entire industry and the way the entire industry is taught to drive or learned to drive. Now, I like left foot braking. Anytime we go to the ring or spa or on any track, and the car that we have is an auto, I left foot brake all day. But the minute I get one of my own cars on track with 3 pedals, I don't think about left foot braking once. I'm now using a 3-pedal car. I like having left foot braking when it's a really good DCT or PDK or something like that. It's very cool. But the average person is just used to this. And I'll go you one further. Now with EVs, they're used to just 1 pedal. They don't even remember how to use the brake. We just sit there, wide stance, and this is the only way we move. There's less involvement. We would have to retrain everybody how to teach driving, and I cannot imagine. You and I have tried to make subtle changes in the way people come to our track days, and in some places there's been crisis. Like, what? You're changing stuff? Can you imagine trying to retrain everybody that currently drives and everyone new being taught to drive, meaning the trainers have to change the way they're driving? I can't imagine. But also, I want to say outside the US, it's more likely to find manual transmissions as base models. And so we just keep carrying on because why change it, right?
Good questions on here. I must acknowledge the Taos questions. People are just trying to get me.
Comments in general. Yeah. You see, Justin Inman said he's got a neighbor who bought a house, and he thinks every time he sees it in the driveway, this is the disease that's happening.
I mean, I'm honored to be associated with that particular special.
There's your legacy. Look at you.
Vehicle. Yeah. Eric P says Towses. They're big here in the DC area. So many of them. Would I rather buy a Taos or the Mitsubishi equivalent? Weirdly, I'd rather buy the Taos just by virtue of the service, the availability of parts and service, because Volkswagen is just such the bigger company. Mitsubishi is sort of like, are you merging? Are you going out of business? What are you going to do today? We don't know. So I'm even more scared of Mitsubishi, even though that means, I admit it, I'd be stuck with the Taos. And if I had to get the Taos, Jordan says, if I had to pick a Taos, Tiguan, or Atlas as a rental car for a week, no, walking isn't an option. See, Jordan cut me off the pass there. So I would probably pick an Atlas because
I figured, yeah,
it's the biggest of the worst.
It's the largest they could do with the MQB chassis. Like we did the Polo.
Yeah.
What's the other end of the spectrum?
It would give more, you know, it's bigger and more lumbering. And so therefore I could give it an excuse like, well, of course it's not good and doesn't handle well because
at least it's big and lumbering.
The biggest. And I have space for people, for passengers to distract me from how bad the car is.
David, which new car is the closest to a Volkswagen All-Track? And he hashtags it Wagons Forever.
Ooh.
The V60 Volvo with all-wheel drive. Unfortunately, the All-Track, you probably are thinking 6-speed manual, and those days are gone. I'm sorry. The A4 Avant wagon, and maybe here's the thing. I'm not sure what it was you were looking for out of the All-Track that you want to find in something else. Again, if it's a wagon with manual, I'm sorry. But if it's a all-wheel drive wagon, I hate to say it, but you need to at least drive the Outback. It's not chuckable. The Volkswagen All-Track was much more interesting to drive. I get that. I'm trying to figure out what you want out of a wagon. I wonder if that V60 might be the answer.
B60. I'd lean towards B60. Daniel N is also asking who we follow for car content, like news, podcasts, photography, art, that kind of thing. It's, of course, a mixed variety of sources, probably a lot of the same things you follow. Certainly the dedicated news sites I do follow, but I also look at Financial Times. I'm interested in their perspective on the worldwide industry, the global industry of what manufacturing is, because they so often focus on large companies that shareholders have, you know, it affects, you know, big portfolios and that kind of thing. So I look at it, you know, I want to see what manufacturers doing globally, because that is certainly reflective of consumer demand for certain models. So I always liked seeing the manufacturing and what's going on in factories. And usually I find out a lot of different interesting information, and you just get a different perspective. So I like the news sites that cover global interest in the automotive industry, even if it might be the boring stuff. Manufacturing, factories, batteries, engines, you know, tires, that kind of thing. And then I find little rabbit trails to go down, like, oh, it leads me back to some other interesting piece of information. But a great source is usually the newsroom of every car company. They have stopped calling it media sites. They are the newsroom for that car company. And they do keep those updated because they have sponsorships, new partnerships that they're doing, new events they're sponsoring, usually golf. But Porsche's newsroom is always interesting because of the athletes that they feature, or some new collab, or some new interesting thing they've tackled. The Porsche cars have conquered some giant mountain or something again. So there's a lot of, you know, cool, interesting information. But BMW does a great job. Mercedes actually does a great job too. I'd like the Japanese car companies to keep, you know, more stuff on their news sites, because sometimes it just feels a little thin. But again, variety of options, but kind of everywhere.
Carson is saying, what's better in the snow, a 2024 Audi A6 Allroad, that's a cool wagon, or a 2011 Nissan Pathfinder? And I have to ask the follow-up question, Carson, and you haven't been clear, who's on better tires?
Yeah.
That's really the answer. However, I will try to answer that further. I prefer lower, smaller cars in the snow than the big stuff. I just do. So in that regard, I'd pick the A6. The Pathfinder would be bigger and sit higher. If one of you is crying out, but what if there's 2 feet of untracked snow? All right, now maybe you want some ground clearance. But I like the lower center of gravity stuff that's smaller. I always prefer that in the snow. But it's going to come down to what's on the better tires.
Let's see. Chris Ostman. Hello, Chris. If Nissan goes away, what car do Sentra buyers move to? Not the Jetta. The Civic. Go to the Civic. There's varieties of Civics.
Yeah, you can get it fairly cheap.
You can get them inexpensive. You can get them, you know, fully loaded. A lot of fun. But yeah, definitely Civic.
Kia K4, bottom of the Kia market. We recently had that. That's a contender as well.
Yeah, that's a large car actually.
Trying to think if there's anybody else in that space that's worth pitching.
And
I mean, you could buy a base Model 3. I mean, Mazda 3. Sorry, but it's probably still going to crest 30 grand. I'm trying to think of things you can get under 30.
Mazda 3, you mean?
Yeah, Mazda 3. Yes. And then, you know what? Subaru Crosstreks. You can get those under 30 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you
just
be
brace
careful,
yourself. Just deep breath. Gonna buy a Subaru now.
King Cars question: what's the best way to do drive homework for cars that dealers are overly precious with and aren't readily available on places like Turo? My question for you, King Cars, is where are you located? Because we've talked about this before. I know this sounds crazy, but I am all for a test driving travel vacation. Places like LA, Vegas, sometimes in Scottsdale, like Arizona, that kind of stuff, you can find, but mainly major tourist destinations, why I say LA and Vegas. Everything you can think of is on Turo. Somebody just bought the first of whatever sports car last week and it's already on Turo. So if you have a place that you can take an actual vacation and then Turo as well, I think that is definitely worth it, especially if you're making one of those purchases like the Amira was for me, where it's like, I can't believe I'm about to make a purchase at this level. Maybe that vacation is worth it. Otherwise, you've got to dig around your local Cars and Coffee and tell people that you're serious, you want to drive their car. That can get a bit sketchy, but that's the only other way.
Kay on our list here says, assuming you actually diligently follow maintenance schedules, are the running costs of German cars still noticeably higher? You could make that argument, and I will say for this question, yes, I'll say yes, but not always, because over following it might give you a little bit better insurance against something happening. Just being a little bit more diligent rather than waiting for your coffee maker to be asked to be cleaned. Maybe do it in advance. A little sooner.
Sorry, I don't even have any idea what you're talking about, but I'm just going to sit over here. It's
whatever your mechanical thing, instead of waiting for the device to tell you that it needs service, which is a baseline thing, overdo it. Do it a little bit better, a little bit more, because you can always see those cars that, you know, we say, wow, it's really clean, really well maintained. Well, it's not just the owner doing scheduled interval services. They've actually gone above and beyond. So I would say take the extra mile to really be on top of stuff, but it's not every car. I mean, Cayennes, you've really stuck to not an over-maintained schedule. I feel like
I've maintained it on schedule. They've been great. Here's the flip side. I believe that generally
Cayman, did I say Cayenne?
Cayennes. I knew what you meant. And so did everybody else, because all we do apparently is buy black Cayennes in my family. Anyway, here's the thing. The thing you have to know about the joke is the Porsche tax, and it is a real thing. Often the German brands, getting the parts and the labor done is 20-25% more expensive than if you did the exact same labor on a Japanese, Korean, or American car. So I believe in most cases that maintaining them are key, but at the same time, you're probably going to spend a little bit more for that maintenance. I know that has definitely been the case with the Cayennes for us. They haven't brought surprises. We hit the maintenance intervals, but those maintenance intervals are pricey.
Did you answer Bella's question about letterboxed?
I did not.
Letterboxed? I think you should. Look, Bella is asking, there's been whiskey and design questions. So a question to you, Todd, a film adjacent question. Are you on Letterboxd?
We are not. That is a competitor kind of to IMDb, and we are not on there, to my knowledge, unless somebody's put us on there. Daniel is asking about how do we tackle speed bumps and non-perfect roads in our low cars? Do we just learn the hard way what obstacles they can and can't take? Daniel, I've been on both sides of this equation. The reality is, and Paul's much better at this than I am, but the reality is when you're driving these small cars, you're just doing this constantly, just avoiding the potholes. You're looking way out front, you're seeing the holes, and you're just constantly avoiding them. Whereas something like a Cayenne, it's just like, oh, that was a pothole, wasn't it? So you have to be looking way out front and avoiding. But then invariably something sneaks up on you. It's happened to me in the Elise. It's happened to me in the Amira. Something sneaks up and you have that terrible full suspension travel clunk. And that's when I'm glad to have a little bit of meat on the tires so they don't instantly blow. Invariably, it will happen, and I hate it, but it's a lot of looking out and being proactive in the lane. The Elise is so small, you can be really proactive in the lane, but most sports cars, you've got enough of a lane that you can avoid the obvious track.
It's cool. I'm going to jump to Instagram. I didn't want to miss this question from 41 to 26, who has a 1978 Datsun 280Z building out as a track rat. What engine should go into it? Three choices, dual overhead cam, L31, so that's a V8, RB26, that's a Nissan straight six, and an LS V8. So two V8s and a straight six. I mean, 280Z, I feel like a straight six would do it.
It feels like the right thing, doesn't it? Yeah.
Design wise, and I think, I mean, Datsun, Nissan engine in your Datsun, I think really goes together. I like the Nissan engine.
I'm going to go back to that question about car content. I watch a little bit of anybody you can think of's reviews. Anybody that is kind of a known commodity on YouTube. I don't watch all of anybody's work, but I kind of pick and choose, and just I'm always curious what various channels are doing. And so some of them are our friends, some of them are people we've only watched their content from afar, but I just will drop into just about any creator you can think of and watch various pieces. And I am the geek that if I sit down to watch it, I watch the entire thing. It's just how I'm wired. So I do that. I listen occasionally to Matt Farah's podcast because he's a friend. So I listen to him now and then. And his podcast is the opposite of ours. So it's one of the reasons I like being on there. But I also like listening to his podcast now and then because he gets some killer guests. We've never been a guest podcast. Matt gets everybody in the car world. Like when Gordon Murray was on there and that kind of stuff. It's like, I'm listening to that right now.
Crazy stuff.
So I do chase that kind of stuff too.
Roger Zhang jumping in. Hey, thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. Love to see you on here. And let's see, HD Shadow Star asking if we will ever see physical checks on our cars again. Physical dipsticks, windshield washer fluid. Well, yeah, transmission dipsticks. It seems like doing your own maintenance is getting difficult. And yes, it's ease of assembly and ease of digitization. It connects as part of the ECU. It's all part of the wiring harness, and it's just easy to install the thing with the sensor. Cheap, easy. It's not yet another thing that needs to be manufactured. Sensors are cheap, easy with the tank of the windshield wiper fluid or whatever it is. It's so much easier from a manufacturing standpoint. So to develop, the stamping and, make the actual part, and it's an extra SKU now and all that kind of stuff, you can see where manufacturers are wanting to gravitate towards. So I think only in resto mods, I think only in, it's got to be really deliberate, but just imagine if a car company came out with all of those things, a key, an actual key, and gave you a key. I think it would be popular initially, and maybe there'd be some runway for it, but people like their convenience. We're just used to our computers and our phones and just touch a button, touch an app.
I'll tell you something.
I don't want a physical thing anymore.
I'll tell you something that never ceases to surprise me. The Amira that I have, and we talked about this just this week, does not have the doors you walk up to with the fob in your pocket and you can just open them. You have to unlock it with the fob. And while I don't mind, I'm not a person, doors have never scarred me in life. I don't mind opening a door. I don't mind having a key. I do think it's interesting that in the modern time, there is a car that I can't just walk up to and pull the handle. I have to unlock it first, which is kind of interesting. There's a lot of really funny comments. Quick funny comment here. Gothard family says, if your kids no longer fit in the back seat of your 86, do you seek out a good adoption agency? That is love for the 86 that goes beyond us. Wow. I really do like that. Also, Asa writes in and says he was in Florida today on the straightest road he's ever seen, and an Elise drove by. Is this a waste of a good chassis? Yes, it's a waste of a good chassis. However, I will say this. Here's my flip side. The Elise is an interesting little beast in one way besides driving. It pulls off something that the Miata and the 86 and others don't, and that is it gives the impression of exotic car ownership. And Florida is a show-off culture for cars, especially if you're anywhere near Miami, where they're not driving those cars well. They're driving them around downtown. It's like Monaco. Like, I'm telling you right now, Monaco is the worst place in the world to drive. Worst place ever.
It's just a giant cruise.
But yet you see these cars that are fantastic to drive in Monaco. Miami has that vibe a little bit. If you don't have exotic car money, you can kind of hang if you pull up in an Elise. I can imagine somebody in Florida buying an Elise that's really pristine and getting away with the vibe well enough, the show off well enough, even if they've never experienced why that car is awesome. So anyway, that's my guess.
That's funny. DP asks if there's any plans to revisit the E92 M3 versus 1M video from 2011. It's what got DP hooked on our channel, and DP still has the 1M. He's got his 1M.
Oh, that's
wow,
such good cars.
I mean, that was kind of a moment in time, I think, for us too. And unless it's part of a larger film, I don't know that it's necessary to revisit that particular comparison. But I could see it, maybe those cars as a longer, larger thing. We're always talking about ideas. Hopefully you guys saw The Price of Fun from now 2 years ago. It's been a little while. So we're talking about ideas similar to that, where it's, a larger car comparison, even though they're hard to pull off because it's hard to find the right version of the car that we need. Because in those kinds of comparisons, it's really got to be the right car. It can't just be something close to it. We wanted the M3, but we'll settle for a 2. It's got to be the exact thing.
And it has to have a premise, I hate to say this, that people are going to watch, because a lot of the old car comparisons, just because it's an old car, we discovered this with the 300ZX and the 928. There were 3 kinds of people that watch that content. Those of you, thank you, that watch everything we do, which is a small percentage of our audience, but thank you for being out there. People that love the 300ZX, people that love the 928, and the rest of YouTube doesn't even know we posted that stuff. Okay.
Sadly,
they have no idea. They just flipped right by it.
We had a great time.
We had a great time. So we have to kind of figure out, essentially when we do those comparisons, you see them here, what is the new car that people can catch on that makes them watch the older cars as well? It's always a question. Club Racer 6, how are you, man? Says, is Beartooth, this trip right here, happening this year? Yes, it is. It's going to happen mid-September. The mileage on it is a little bit more than the Utah adventure, because it's 2 days of driving to get to Beartooth, a day of driving Beartooth, and then everybody scatters from there. But it is a phenomenal trip that isn't open for registration yet, but it is coming. Also, Pilgrimage is happening again this year. That is the end of April, beginning of May. You can go to our website right now, everydaydriver.com, the Adventures tab. There's still a couple spaces left for this year's Pilgrimage. We'd love to have you with us. If you'd like to go bigger than that, that's where the Hooked on Driving trip comes in, and that's in right after July 4th, the 5th through the 11th. That is the Ring, Zandvoort in Amsterdam, and Spa in one trip. I still can't believe we're doing that, but I'm very excited. Nobody else on the planet, including our friends at RSR, were like, oh, that sounds like a cool trip. They hadn't even really put it together. We were like, couldn't you guys do all 3? And they were like, that sounds really great. So that's going to be a very special trip. That one may never come again, actually, because it's been hard to put together. But Beartooth is going to happen, and we'd love to have you.
Farjad asking what we think about the upcoming Honda Prelude and rumored joint operation of Mazda and Toyota for the next sports car. Boy, Mazda collaborates with everybody. I mean, they did that in the 90s, and Toyota collaborates with everybody. But you know what? Both companies have proven to be successful when they collaborate. So if it's them, yeah, I welcome that, because both of those companies think small. They think small, lightweight, fun cars. Toyota certainly does. Mazda does. So if that's what will give us a next generation, if they have to pool funds to pull it off, we should all thank them and buy their products, because I think they're the only ones thinking that way in the industry. Everyone else, I mean, there's a lot of vehicles available in Europe and around the world that we don't get in North America and the US. But for that focused drivers thinking, that's how those companies think. That's how they approach their projects. So I say that's a great thing. And regarding the Prelude, I feel like it's sanitized from the concept. I feel like Honda's already looking at it like, it just needs to be a little gas saver, electric, hybrid, whatever it is. And it's just going to be this, little lightweight thing. If they had come out with the Type R Prelude, be-winged, I don't care, whatever.
It'd be cool if they
from the start, and then say, oh, we'll make economy versions of it, but look at this thing. They would have generated much more excitement instead of us waiting for, oh my gosh, when is the Type R version of this thing coming? And, it needs to be much better than that it would suggest. I think they should have started with the coolness, because that gets people excited. And then I can't afford that one. Yeah. So I'll buy the one down from that I can't afford and screw a piece of siding to it and make my own or something. You know what I mean? So
it's just a piece of siding away from a great car. That's really what's going to happen. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh my gosh.
Your wing is upside down, sir. It actually lifts the back end of the car off the ground when you...
Well, but it's a front wheel drive car, so that helps get more grip in the front.
That's what we're doing. Over the nose.
That's what we're doing. You got to get the weight up front.
Anyway.
Quancho asks, hey, to both of us, he's asking if my son, since he's driving, is going to attend HPDE events and drive with Hooked on Driving. Yes, I hope so. That is my intention. Now, we do have a policy. I'm going to policy now. But anyway, we do have a policy where you have to be a licensed driver to get on track with us, so you can't do it yet. But I can think of a couple coaches right now I'd love to put him in a car with, because I want to get him up to a certain place, and then I want to put him in a car with somebody else and be like, that's a great coach. Let them get you around. I would love that. I'm very excited about it. We really pride ourselves at Hooked on Driving to be a place where you've never driven on track before. Come get with our instructors and be with us, because that's the thing we're really focused on. And yes, I am wearing a Lotus Amira shirt. You called it out, and I have to say, of course I am. Yes, I am.
See, Ben H asking, what were our first new cars that we bought? Was it the spec that we wanted? I'm pretty sure it was that 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee I got when I moved to Utah.
Yeah.
And yes, it was the spec that I wanted. It was fully loaded. And I just thought, Jeep love. I wanted a Jeep moving back to the mountains. And it was great up until it wasn't, because the Uconnect system just went black. It wasn't a blue screen. It just died. And then the steering rack, unbeknownst to me, just leaked, but it filled the boot, the entire thing, with the hydraulic fluid. So it never leaked. It just didn't operate, and all the fluid was out hiding in the bellows.
One of my very favorite parts of that car, when you took it in for service, they were like, well, there's no fluid leak. And then they discovered the lake hiding in the car.
In the bellows of the thing. So I decided, you know what? I don't think it wasn't Stellantis at that point. It was still FCA, but I always made the joke. It was, I think, a Mercedes ML chassis.
It was, yeah.
Designed in Detroit, owned by the Italians, and built in Mexico, I think. Or most of
I don't know why anything went wrong. I don't know what's going on there. Daniel's asking, what car is it we've always liked, but others in our life think is stupid or ugly? Let's start the list here. Let's see. The Isuzu Via Cross, I just harbor unnecessary interest for. That one exists for sure. I like the BMW i3. So does my son. My wife thinks they're ugly. And this has been something that has come up many, many times before. And that is, I really like the Fiesta ST in the orange or the really bright hyper green. And anytime I've mentioned it, my wife has gone, how is that a good car? She just can't get her head around it, but I just think they're great.
Color matters. It really gives you perception of cars. Ralph C., thank you for asking your questions, Ralph. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your involvement. And do we think that both American and Japanese car company designs have been influenced by European car makers? Absolutely. And vice versa. I mean, the 928 was certainly influenced by the C4 Corvette. Back and forth. All the car companies are always looking at what everybody else is doing. But it's refreshing when it seems like they're not, like BMW for the new class and Hyundai with their look. They've developed their own style. Some of it's interesting, some of it's too far, but for the most part, excellent. So I think they're always looking at what other companies are doing and trying to get to a signature look, and hopefully away from just the same proportions, DLOs, hood, a shoulder line, some wheel arches, painted silver, powertrain, and it comes with all the same safety gear and the same warranty as everyone else, and put the same badge on it, and it's just headlight technology. So I'm really hoping that future car design, you really start to do not polarizing things, but I think thinking that this isn't going to be for everyone on the market, and that will stand out. The problem is sometimes it manifests itself in the form of beaver teeth.
It happens.
But it can reveal fruit.
Austin is saying, if we didn't do a podcast or YouTube for a career, would we own the same cars we do now? And if not, what would they be? Austin, I had this thought recently while driving the Amira. I thought there is nothing in the trajectory of my life that would have ever led me to buying that car. I wouldn't have taken the risk. I wouldn't have tried to afford it. Granted, I still can't afford it. The show bought it, thank God. But I do think at some point I would have tried to figure out how to get into an Elise, because that was a car that was under my skin really early on in my adult life. And I wanted one ever since they came out new. I think whatever my trajectory had been, I probably would have chased an Elise. But I think about the stuff I owned up to that, I don't think I would have owned any of that. And the stuff I've owned around the Elise, probably none of that. But the Amira, no way, would have never happened.
Rad Raff asks if we've ever tinkered with the idea of fun, reliable, and affordable cars at a $5,000 or $10,000 price point. You've seen a few of our best car for $5,000 videos, but the Z4 parts or maintenance, things like that, are questionable. Hopefully you've seen our $8,000 sports car challenge from 3-4 years ago, somewhere in there. But we are looking at doing, revisiting something like that. We actually are, and it's not always easy. You'd think it'd be easy to find those cars, but to find the car that represents exactly the price point. We can't say, we can't always buy all of them, but we always can't say we found the nicest version, but that one wouldn't be 15. A worse one would, but it's a representative. It needs to be from that actual price category to really evaluate it. I feel
when we did our $8,000 car thing, it was literally the morning we did that. there were pages of each of those cars on Auto Tempest at $8,000 or below. It wasn't like there was one and so it worked. We're always really cautious of that. We want to get in the right price point. We're trying to do those again, but again, they are hard to put together, but it is on our mind. Here's an adventure idea from Daniel. What about a cruise to Buc-ee's?
Done.
It'll probably happen.
Where do I sign up?
Here's the thing. I fully expect while we are in Austin for COTA, there will be various offshoot trips of people going to Buc-ee's. There's a Buc-ee's like 15, 20 minutes from there. I'm sure it's going to happen.
Just load up.
I can't claim it's us doing it, but I'm sure there will be Buc-ee's trips, little side notes. There you go.
Am I out of gas again? We need to take a little trip.
Let's see. Half of Florida is show-off country, and the other half of Florida is southern Alabama. Matt, that's funny. I enjoyed reading that. That's very funny.
That is funny. X2 Coog asking why the Nissan Z has not taken off. X2 Coog has only ever seen one on the road. I feel like it's because Nissan treated that car like they treat every one of their other models, and it wasn't good enough for Z enthusiasts. The new Frontier, make a slight revision. Mostly it's the same underneath. We tweaked the rear shocks and springs a little bit. Rides pretty good. New body. Bob's your uncle. But they did that to every single one of those cars, I think, in an effort to save money, which from a business decision is good. But not with the Z car. Not with the beloved Z. They didn't go far enough. It's too related to the old one. It can't just be a reskin, a refresh. It has to bring something new to the table. And although I think we appreciate the recipe that it was, a lot of power, manual transmission, GT car, kind of good at everything, I don't feel like Nissan pushed hard enough on bringing something really special to market. And there's those of you who have owned one and moved on from them already, I feel like. And it was good for a while. We appreciate it, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make a lasting impression and therefore lasting ownership. I don't feel like.
Okay, Daniel's just throwing down. Daniel's like rapid firing the questions, and we have slow mode on too. So he's got some good ones here, but he's tapping into me. He said, "What car would we say embodies the SR71 Blackbird?" Ooh, and we should take a trip to see the one we have in Michigan. I've actually seen the Blackbird various places. That's not bad.
A Vector.
Vector's up there. The problem is I wish the Vector were more successful. That's the only issue I have with using the Vector, because the SR71 Blackbird was a throwdown car. It was wildly successful for what it was.
As long as the car leaks fuel while it's stationary, then we're like, yeah, it really totally
perfect. Until it gets warmed up, it keeps leaking fuel like a sieve. Anyway,
at speed, the panels
these are SR71 Blackbird jokes, folks. That's how deep we are right now. That's really crazy. That's very funny.
Oh man, hour has flown. We're almost there. Crazy.
Let's see.
Isuzu Storms. I remember the Isuzu Storm.
Oh, totally, yes.
I remember the Geostorm. Holy cow. I thought that was so cool. And then come to find out years later, it was not as cool.
BJJ says he's seen our original NSX video of the NA1 versus the NA2. I mean, there was that revision in 95, 96, somewhere in there, if I remember correctly. And they went from 5-speed to 6-speed. There was an engine jump in there as well. I'm getting myself a little bit confused, but because it's been a while. But he's saying, is it worth trading up to the NA2 if he has an NA1? I don't think so. I really don't. I think the problem is now those cars are so in demand and they're worth so much. If you have one you know and like, I say just keep it. The originals were all analog steering. And I remember, here's the thing. I remember this conclusion. I don't remember why. I remember I preferred the 5-speed to the 6. And I think it was because of the ratios in 2-3. I remember feeling like the 6, I didn't enjoy the gearbox as much as I did the 5. And I enjoyed the 6 gearbox a lot. I remember being surprised by how much I liked the 5-speed. I think if you've got an original, keep it, man. That sounds like an amazing car.
I feel like I eviscerate car companies a lot. Because Chris O is saying he feels like we should have a moment of silence for Canoo shutting down. So there's Nissan, VW, Canoo. No. With Canoo shutting down, the void should be filled with mockery.
Yes.
Not silence. We're not lamenting the fact that Canoo shut down. We are happy. We are glad because that void needs to be filled with something compelling and interesting and better and not just redefine. You know what I mean? So I feel like car companies these days, have gotten too much business overshadowing why people love cars. And I think that's prevented sales, because I feel like I'm seeing it across the board. Audience, I don't know what news you read. I don't know what you see from Maserati not getting the investment they needed. Aston, a luxury brand with a lot of wealthy customers, not meeting their sales goals. Stellantis, not sure what to do next. They're floundering, it seems like. The ID Buzz already has practically cash on the non-hood to come buy it.
cash before the logo, just dropped on the ground. There you go. Yep.
Something.
That's very funny.
What are car companies missing that will pull money out of consumers' wallets where it's so compelling? It drives greater. It's just so amazing. Jordan and I were actually talking about the Buzz lately. He's seen more. I still have not seen one on the road. Apparently he sees a ton of them.
I think it's location.
In Colorado.
I think it's just our area is sponsored by Rivian. There are more Rivians here than any other place I've been.
I've seen even more of them. Everyone has one now.
Yes. We go to LA, we go to Denver. I don't see nearly as many Rivians as we do here. They're practically handing them out, versus we don't see the ID Buzz, which I bet you was also selling in LA.
And is it
anyway
niche vehicles? Is it, BMW has got it right? I feel like there's got to be something compelling, and car manufacturers have an even harder job to make products that make money, I feel like.
Nathaniel's asking the question we keep teasing. I'm going to touch on it here. And he says, we keep hearing about podcast changes. Should we be worried? Look, I'm going to spell it out right now. I'm going to tell you the whole story just so you guys know. I have struggled for the last couple of years because you all have always made the joke. A podcast is named after a piece of technology that no longer exists. It's named after the iPod, which doesn't exist anymore. The little, it was the size of the camera space on the back of your, yes. So the podcast is already named after a defunct technology. That's already funny. I came out of radio. Back in college, I did radio. So I think in a radio audio medium, it is different than a visual medium. I love being a filmmaker, but audio straight stuff and video stuff is different. Listen to, I'm going to go way back. The original Orson Welles War of the Worlds radio broadcast. Find it somewhere and listen to it. Just sit somewhere where all you're doing is listening. It's amazing how much it sells it. But if you zoom out and give it any modern perspective, you're like, how did people fall for this? But it freaked people out. Audio storytelling is a thing. This is an audio medium. However, I'm aware of the fact in the last 2 or 3 years, the entire industry has moved to podcasts or video. So now we have
an audio podcast. Medium. I'll totally watch it.
Now we have an audio medium based on a defunct technology that requires video. My brain hurts. I am confused. The other thing that bothers me about video podcasts is very often they stop being friendly to the listener because you have to see what they're talking about. And I've been very reluctant. However, I am aware of the fact that at this point, anyone that talks about a podcast is looking to watch it, even if they're putting it on in the background and mostly listening. So starting at podcast 1000, every one of our podcasts will have a video element. We're intending to go to one a week. They will be longer, but they will have video. They will not be live, but they will have video. That'll be multicam. This studio will change. The next time you see it, it'll be podcast 1001 because 1000 will be at Coda, and that will hopefully be live.
Yeah,
but 1001 and onward.
Short break.
Exactly,
because we'll be exhausted.
We're still gonna be driving to Tail of the Dragon. When 1001, we're still driving. We haven't even gotten home yet. Yes,
chill
exactly.
Out, just chill
so
out.
We're going to do a video podcast as well. We'll have the ability to show you what's on screen, so we can do things like we've wanted to do car configurator discussions forever. That needs a visual reference. We're going to do everything we can to keep it friendly to those of you that are just listening, because that's very important to me. But we know that the industry has left us. And we know that places like YouTube and other places are pushing podcasts a lot. So we want to be available to as many people as possible. So the other change happening is we will now be posting our podcast as video. They will come out once a week and they'll be posted on our original Everyday Driver channel going forward. That's all the changes. We're not stopping the podcast. There's nothing, like dun, dun, dun. There's nothing like that. It's just we realized, you know what, if we're going to do this video shift, where's a good break? 1000 feels like the right break. So this, last time for this studio, a little sad, but it'll be a whole new thing. That's what's going on.
Guys, we sure appreciate your questions. Look,
they're still flying in.
They're flying in for sure. We really appreciate your engagement, your involvement. But with this change to video, we feel like it's an opportunity for even more involvement, because we'll still post up for questions. We want you to see, what we're thinking of, what we're talking about. We can switch to something we found on the internet and
Yeah.
show it off. So I think there will be even more engagement, and we really look at it as new, fresh change for the best and for the future too. So,
and apparently podcasts are video. That's what I'm being told.
Defunct technology based on a product that doesn't exist.
Yes,
always audio, and now, so that's the direction we're going. We're very excited about it.
We are.
Thank you for your support, but of course, there will always be an opportunity to ask these kinds of questions and have this engagement, which we appreciate.
To that point, here's the thing I want you to know: we will still do a live podcast every 25, but generally it'll be a in-studio podcast, and the audio and video will drop all at the same time in all the places you're used to, plus some places you haven't seen it already, because there'll be a video element. There's a lot going on, lots for us to do in the next 25 podcasts, but that's what's happening.
Got any last questions to address here before we sign off?
Radraff says maybe YouTube will give us a small kickback. YouTube gives nobody kickbacks. I mean, it'd be nice if we make some money off the YouTube post because of actual ads. That'd be nice. But YouTube's not incentivizing anybody beyond, oh, you're going to make so much money. Have you heard? Just start a YouTube channel. The number of people now, sorry, I'm ranting, that are like, I should start a podcast. I thought we were behind when we started. In 2014, when we started, I thought we were behind the 8 ball. And then COVID hit, and we were all sitting at home, and everybody's like, I should start a podcast.
Exactly.
And then post-COVID, everybody's like, I should film it too. What we won't do, last part of my rant, we're not going to just do a Zoom call released to YouTube. Right. That bugs me. At that point, just be audio. It's got to be
good audio.
Anyway, I'm ranting, and I'm stopping my ranting. Good exhale.
Serenity now, guys. Thank you for following, for watching. A last reminder for Coda. For this podcast, we'll keep reminding you, but we want to see you there May 31st, June 1st, 2025. A big Cars and Coffee there, of course, 2 days on track. And that is where the 1000th episode of this podcast is happening. We would love to see you there. Make plans for that. It's the weekend after Memorial Day weekend. So if you've already got plans, no worries. It's the weekend after. And then, of course, all of our overseas, the pilgrimage adventure for Everyday Driver, and the HOD European adventure. That's a special one. You're right.
Here's the thing.
Hope it happens again, but
I'm not sure it will, because Zandvoort's dropping off the F1 calendar. And again, RSR just happened to have 3 lined up within a week. And I was like, hey, could we maybe do this? And they were like, that sounds really cool. So even they were excited. Nobody else is offering that. It's going to be a really fun one.
Until next time, really appreciate it. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, guys.